Pharmac has been left red-faced as a cost-saving initiative appears to have backfired, and it retreated on its plan to shift thousands of patients from their prescribed drugs to a cheaper alternative. The government's drug-buying agency was set to save $30 million, moving 11,000 people from Lamictal and Arrow to a generic form of Lamotrigine called Logem. Today it's been revealed on Checkpoint that a fourth patient has died, with a family blaming the change to the new drug. Now, Pharmac has today decided to allow patients to return to using their preferred drugs, meaning its cost savings are out the window, though it won't admit any fault about the deaths until the coroner rules that there was any link. Investigative reporter Guyon Espiner spoke to Pharmac's Dr Ken Clark today and told me a little later that Pharmac is raising the white flag without admitting any fault just yet.
This is a back down, there's no doubt about that. They don't want to say that, but by widening the access criteria and effectively allowing anyone who, with consultation from their GP, wants to stay on their existing drug, they are raising the white flag to that degree. They don't want to say that, and you can imagine why. I mean, this has been a very stressful thing for them as well, and they've got a lot at stake here. But this is a significant change and a significant U-turn, a significant back down from Pharmac in my analysis.
And probably some of the strongest analysis we've had as well is from MedSafe itself. It warned Pharmac not to do this, and it's been pretty damning in what it said since, hasn't it?
Well, I think that's right, and I think you're right to set up that possible tension between the two agencies. Remember, MedSafe initially said don't do it, it's against international best practice. It poses a potential significant safety risk in other comparable countries. Don't do it. Pharmac went against that advice and did the switch anyway. And then earlier this week on this program, we announced that there had been 3 deaths associated with it. We always have to remind people we can't prove that they're definitely linked, but there's enough of a worry to have forced this change. Now that came about, I got that information for Checkpoint from a MedSafe alert that came out. So MedSafe pushed that out. It was almost as though they were saying, we want this information out there. We don't quite believe that Pharmac is showing enough urgency here, and so they pushed that out there. So these two agencies have been singing from different hymn sheets on this issue, no doubt about it.
Yes, and since you've spoken to Dr Clark, that we've had a 4th death, and again, as you say, we can't, until there's a coroner's report, we cannot make that link. But nor did he rule out that there might be further deaths from this. I noticed as well from what he said, and Pharmac has said this in other Pharmac stories that you've covered and has been covered here in Checkpoint, which is, well, look, we got that advice from MedSafe, but our own clinical advisors took that into account and advised us this way. We've heard it about funding for breast cancer drugs, for example, among others. Do you know who are these clinical advisors? What's their role? And are they independent enough from the other, let's say, commercial arrangements and considerations that Pharmac has to make?
I think it's a very good question. On this one in particular, they did a joint expert group of mental health and neurology because it does span these two issues. I think you're going to be covering that on this program. Some people with mental health issues do use Lamotrigine, and the other group are people with epilepsy. So they combined the two expert groups for that particular consideration and decision. And yes, it did go through that process. But you have to look at the motivation overall, and it does come down to money. And I don't want to be crass. This money is for Pharmac to use for other drugs. So it's not just saving it and throwing it back into the government pot. We know the motivation for Pharmac is to save money to then spend on new drugs. That's the way the whole system works, right? It's got a capped budget. To get extra money to buy new drugs, it has to work out these savings. The question is, are they being too aggressive? Did they take a line call one here? MedSafe says don't do it. International best practice says don't do it. Were they too aggressive to try and save that 30 million? Here's the other question. Will they save 30 million now? No, because the changes that they have made means they will be funding more of those original brand drugs that they were trying to switch people off. Then you've got the costs of the hospitalisations and the tragedy, and who wants to put a dollar figure on life? But Treasury does, and it's 4.7 million. So it is real that there are real economic costs. The question you have to ask, I haven't done the analysis, but someone will, have they saved anything at all? Will they save anything at all when you total up the sum cost of this, quite apart from the obvious tragedies for the families involved?
Guyon Espiner there a little bit earlier from our Wellington studio.